On behalf of all the Eastern Shore Leagues, I welcome you to this forum for the Democratic candidates running for the Maryland Senate District 36, and thank you for joining us. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We do not support or oppose political parties or candidates. Our goal this afternoon is to provide voters with an opportunity to hear directly from the candidates about the issues facing our communities and to help citizens make informed decisions at the ballot box. We are grateful to the candidates for participating and to all of you for taking the time to be engaged in the democratic process. An informed electorate is essential to a strong democracy, and forums like this one are an important part of civic participation. At this time, I would like to introduce and thank our Democratic candidates, Nyvette Johnson and John Queen. I would like to thank Wide River Upper School, Nicole Sophocles, and Angie Marsh for enabling us to use this beautiful space and for the service they provide to the community. Thank you to James Martinez, who will be recording this program, and this program will be available on our website, lwbqac.org, and other websites that we will publicize as soon as we have more information about them. Thank you all to our amazing media partners who have helped publicize this forum and are providing coverage of this event, especially Andrea Grabenstein of the Bay Times and Record Observer. In addition to our media partners, you can also access voter information on vote411.org, and there is lots of information about voting on our information tables in the back. Thank you to the members of the 3 Eastern Shore chapters of the League of Women Voters who have worked so hard to bring you this afternoon. Glenna Heckathorn, President of the Midshore League and their members, Jackie Adams, President of the Kent County League and their members, and Barb Britton and Mary Campbell from the League, from the Queen Anne's County League, and to all our board members. And of course, thank you to our audience. Our moderator for this forum is Gina Crook from Queen Anne's County League, and our timers are Mary Campbell and Patricia Jameson. Now, please silence your phones. Please refrain from demonstrations of support or opposition during the forum so that we may provide a fair and welcoming environment for all participants. And we do have volunteers that are walking around with index cards. If you have a question to ask one of the candidates, please raise your hand. They'll bring an index card, the pencil to you. You can write your question down, and they will bring them to Gina, who's our moderator, for you to ask the candidate questions. Again, thank you for being here and for your commitment to informed civic engagement. And now, I will turn the forum over to our moderator, Gina Crook, who will review the format for today's forum.
Good afternoon. My name is Gina Crook, and I'll be moderating in today's forum. This forum is being videotaped and will be available at www.lwvqac.org. Today's forum is for District 36 Democratic State Senate candidates, which covers Kent County, Queen Anne's County, and parts of Caroline and Cecil counties. The candidate who receives the largest number of votes will win the primary election and go on to race in November's election. The format for today's forum will be as outlined in your program. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves and give an opening statement. After the opening statement, I will ask 4 prepared questions that the League of Women's Voters has sent to the candidates beforehand. After the candidates have answered the prepared questions, the floor will then be open to questions from the audience. I was just told by our timers that you'll have 2 minutes for your introduction, and then 1.5 minutes, is that correct? And 1.5 minutes per question. And they'll let you know when they'll help you keep track of your time. So again, we have 2 timers sitting in the front row with signs to give a 15-second warning and then a final stop after the allocated time is up. We ask that you please hold all applause until the end of the forum so that we have as much time as possible for your questions and answers. Now, please make sure all of your phones, cell phones, and other devices are silenced. The forum will now begin with the candidates introducing themselves, starting with Mr. Johnson, who drew the first number for the order in which they will answer questions. Gentlemen, you each have 2 minutes.
All right, good evening, everyone. I really appreciate the League Women Voters here in our district for putting this on. My name is Chesapeake Johnson, and I'm running here to be your state senator in District 36. And I'm running on the notion of putting everyday people first. For far too long, folks in this district have felt left behind. They have felt ignored, they've not been heard. And it's now time to change that in a myriad plethora of ways. My campaign is focused on affordability, accessibility, and economic opportunity. This is a little bit about my campaign, a little bit about me. I've grown up here my whole life. I grew up in Kent County. I went to school right here in Queen Anne's County, went to Chesapeake College and then to Salisbury. I'm a public school educator. I've served on boards and commissions from Kent County School Board down to the state of Maryland, working on information requests and serving on the judicial nominating commissions. And I've also served on our local Democratic Central Committee. So really service is at my heart, service is at my root. And so I found the time that how can I expand my service? And one way I wanted to do that is working with our district and helping move them forward during this time. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Queen.
Testing. My name is John Queen, and I'm running for Maryland State Senate in District 36. I'm running because too often the things affecting people's daily lives aren't always working together. And families, businesses, and communities across our district feel the consequences. Over the past months, I spent time talking to residents across our district, and one thing keeps coming up. People want to feel heard. They want to feel included in the decisions that are affecting their community. And they want leadership that understands and acknowledges that too many people in Queen Anne's County and across our district don't feel heard in Annapolis. It's time that changes. Across the district, I've heard concerns about rising health costs, healthcare access, and also transportation and growth, and whether communities still have a meaningful voice in the decisions that are shaping their life. And when those challenges aren't being solved with coordination, people feel it in our community in a real way. They feel it by higher costs, fewer opportunities, and broken systems that feel hard to navigate. Over the past decade, I've worked in schools, nonprofit spaces. I've worked with healthcare partnerships in neighborhoods across our district. And one thing clearly resonates. Most of our challenges are connected, which means our solutions must also, too, be connected. That's why I'm focused on practical leadership, better coordination, and results people can actually feel in their everyday lives. And that's especially important in a primary election because this moment, communities decide what kind of leadership they want representing them. I believe District 36 deserves that visible, accessible, and leadership that understands our community. And also, I look forward to serving you in our district and the conversation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you both. Now we will move on to our prepared questions that the candidates were given previously. You have a minute and a half each. And the first question is, Maryland has seen roughly a 50% increase in the electricity costs since 2020, driven by grid strain, energy mandates, and shifting generation sources. What specific actions would you take in Annapolis to bring utility bills down for District 36 families? And how quickly do you think relief is realistic? And we're going to start with Mr. Queen for this one.
Rising utility costs are one of the most immediate pressures facing families across our district. And we need both short-term relief and long-term stability. So first, we need to improve transparency and oversight so residents understand what's driving costs and how decisions affecting their bills are being made. Second, expand energy efficiency programs. Things like weatherizing homes, upgrading equipment, and helping seniors, working families, and small businesses reduce the use of energy. Because lower consumption is one of the fastest ways to start lowering your bill. Third, make sure our rural community on the Eastern Shore that we're not carrying a disproportionate share of statewide energy costs and infrastructure decisions. People deserve relief as quickly as possible, and we achieve that through stronger oversight and helping people lower their energy use. The larger challenge is making Maryland a self-sufficient energy state that keeps costs from rising throughout the long term. Families should be protected and not scammed when it comes to energy in Annapolis. Thank you.
So the question was on energy and utility costs. It's no secret that Marylanders have seen a skyrocket of bills. I've talked to residents in this district where in homes that barely are having electric TVs and lights on, they're paying almost $600 for places that don't have central heating and cooling. And that is a very big concern in our district. You know, we can't continue to put that on the backs of our citizens, especially those that are our most vulnerable. What we have to really start looking at, and I heard this when the congressman was up here, we have to start looking at ways we can focus on offshore energy. It may cost, we have to focus on ways that we can offshore wind and offshore technologies, because our electrical grid here it's almost over capacity. We don't have a lot of electricity that we make here in Maryland, and that's a concern, right? We have to start, we rely on other states and other grids to do that, so we really need to start making electricity here in Maryland. But at the same time, for that simple relief, what we need to do, I think we need to expand our rebates, we need to expand our tax credits for our citizens, we need to help homeowners reduce consumption on their energy costs. I know I teach students about energy costs. And the last thing, we need to find ways that we can strengthen already existing financial assistance programs so that every citizen feels that they don't have to take the weight of energy costs in here in Maryland.
Thank you both. We are going to move on to the second prepared question, and we will start with Mr. Johnson. Much of District 36 is rural, with limited public transit and few ride-sharing options. Many residents struggle to reach medical appointments, jobs, and essential services. What is your concrete plan to improve transportation access across the district? And how would you fund it at the state level?
This question is really personal to me. As a student at Chesapeake College, I struggled finding reliable transportation and effective transportation just to get to college in Chestertown. We had a system already in place, but we need to make it stronger, right? We have a lot of nonprofit transportation services here in the county-run services, and sometimes those things are not reliable. So what I would do is really how do we find ways to offset that at the state level? How do we find more grant money to make these things reliable? It is a concern. I have talked to citizens where they can't get to healthcare appointments because they have to pay $180 in Uber. I have talked to citizens who can't get to work because they have to rely on a family member or an individual to get them there. So we need strong, rural, regional transportation systems. We have active railroad in these counties. We have a whole commuter bus that stops on Kent Island, but it does not go the rest of the way. So how do we continue to take the infrastructure that we have and make it better? And I think as a state senator, we can work on that using our ability to write financial bills and working with our state agencies to ensure that we can get reliable rural transportation right here in Maryland.
Eastern Shore is really about whether people can reliably get to work, obtain healthcare access, and get to the essential services without unnecessary barriers. Right now, the challenge is that services are fragmented. In rural areas, our options are very limited. My approach will have a few practical shifts. It starts with better coordination between counties, so transportation services are connected rather than operating in isolation across our district. It also means expanding flexible transit options, like on-demand services and partnerships that make better use of existing vehicles and resources, especially during off-peak hours. As my colleague just said, one of the things that he had an issue with was getting to college. So focusing on off-peak hours will help a lot of the residents across our district. And it means making sure state funding is structured so rural communities can design transportation systems around our geographical needs, and instead of relying on the one-size-fits-all urban policies that come out of Annapolis. At the end of the day, transportation should connect people to opportunity and not limit them from opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you both. I will now move on to the third prepared question, and Mr. Queen, you will be the first to answer this one. Maryland must balance its budget every year, yet the blueprint for Maryland's future, the state's landmark education funding law, is projected to create significant structural budget pressure in the years ahead. How do you balance your commitment to education funding with the state's fiscal constraints? And if difficult choices have to make, what would you protect first?
Thank you for the question, Gina. As a current Board of Ed member of King County Public Schools, I see firsthand how these funding decisions play out in the schools and in classrooms. I also hear concerns from families across our district about long-term affordability and whether the investment we're making produces outcomes people actually expect. My approach is protecting what reaches students, classroom instruction, teachers, and direct student services, because that's where outcomes are determined. Beyond that, what we need to do, we need to make sure we're measuring these results from education funding. So we're not just investing more, we're investing smarter and making sure the dollars that we are producing create real results for our students, but also our community. We also need to take a very hard look at how programs are actually structured and how they administer. So that way, when we look at those, we can take away duplication and focus on resources where they have the most impact. Also, we need to look at these same impacts and make sure the impact is not weakening classroom structure. My priorities are classroom instruction, special education, and early childhood education. Because this is about being financially responsible while still delivering strong public education to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, as an educator, I already see the firsthand of the work that the Blueprint has done, and it is one of the most important investments that I think we have made in Maryland. With that being said, in the Blueprint there are a lot of things, from community schools to universal pre-K in some districts, to safety and health, mental health services. However, we also understand that sometimes these mandates from the state of Maryland do affect some of our rural counties. And that takes us back to this, when we go to Annapolis, some legislators find it's a one-size-fits-all model. And it's really not that way, because what's going on in Montgomery County is quite different than Kent County. What goes on in Kent County is quite different from Queen Anne's County. But for me as a state senator, I would also continue to make sure that I invest in education, because that is my heart. But at the same time, when we are trying to invest in education, in fully fund the education system, we have to actually start looking at our whole state budget and say, okay, they're already doing this in this area. If they're already doing it in this agency, then we should take it out of that agency and repurpose that money in another agency. We have to start using some of our nonprofits. They want to be involved in our state budget system. And when we involve them, we can say, okay, that nonprofit again is doing that resource. Let's take it out of our agency and let's split the funding in other directions. But really, we have to kind of figure out, how do we find these funding measures because we're going to be facing by year 2030 a $4 billion deficit. And that should not come on the backs of our citizens, but it can. So let's be prepared.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to our last prepared question, and this one is on data centers. Data centers offer potential economic benefits, jobs, tax revenue, rural investment, but they also strain the power grid, consume significant water, and raise land use questions. Should District 36 actively pursue data center development? If yes, what conditions would you require? If no, what economic development strategies would you champion for the Eastern Shore instead? And Mr. Johnson, you're going to take this question first this time.
Yes, okay, thank you. I am a no to data centers, and I'll tell you why I'm a no to data centers. Data centers have put a lot of strain on our electrical grid. They put a lot of strain on our water supply. They put a lot of strain on our land use. I'm not saying that data centers do not provide an economic benefit. We see this in Frederick County. They have a $3 million revenue increase in revenue. At the same time, if we thinking that we can rely on data centers to do all the economic opportunity, I don't think it's such. One of the ways that I think that we can start doing and actively pursue is utilizing what we already have. We have, District 36, I say it all the time, is positioned and poised in a great area. We have open access to land, in warehouses and business parks. We're on the 95 corridor, we're on the 404, the 301. These are prime spaces to help bring in business. Tourism, right? We have lovely communities, beaches and towns and history. So utilizing our tourism, working with our small business communities to ensure that their small businesses are being able to be sustained. So we have plenty of opportunities, but as of now, I'm a no on data centers, especially for the environmental impact that they create.
Well, it's good to see my primary opponent finally changed his tune, because a couple of weeks he was for data centers, so I'm glad to see he's starting to understand the harm of data centers. So data centers are not the right fit for District 36 at this time, because of the strain that they can place on energy demand, water resources, and our local infrastructure that our communities depend on every day. In our region, we need to be very intentional about protecting what already sustains our economy. That's our water, our agricultural community, and our small businesses. Because once those systems are stressed, they're not easily replaced. Now that doesn't mean we turn away from growth, but it does mean we focus on the right type of growth. I support small-scale solar on homes and existing commercial properties, but I do not support using productive farmland for large-scale solar or data development. We need to protect agricultural land and keep working for our farmers, watermen, and local community. Any economic development strategy must be balanced, so we're not relying on a single type of large-scale development that could outpace our infrastructure in our district. And most importantly with that, we don't want to shift that burden onto our community. Growth should work for our communities and not against our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now going to move on to our questions from the audience. Okay, and so this first one will be goes to you, Mr. Queen, and then Mr. Johnson, you can answer it right afterwards. What are your key strategies to beat Steve Hershey?
So with that, a lot of people think because this is a Republican district, it's unforeseeable with the 2-to-1 Republican to Democratic advantage. He has about a 12,000 to 15,000 vote advantage. The first thing you have to do is knock 20 to 30% off his base. You do that by going with independents and then the power of persuasion with Republicans. Remember, 2-to-1. Right now, a lot of Republicans aren't happy with the federal administration and our congressional administration. So we have to persuade one of two of Republicans, focus on independents. But where I think I'm different from everyone running for this seat, the incumbent and my colleague Naveek Johnson, is we need to get the black, brown vote to the table. We need to get disenfranchised voters to the table, and we need to get the voices of the youth through the table. If you take that perfect storm with every seat being contested since 1954, you have a very good chance of taking a chunk out of Steve Hershey's advantage. And once you take a chunk in his advantage, it's a fair race and it's fair game. So that would be my sort of, not to give too much to the community, but some of my tactics that I will kind of impart on my campaign in the general election.
Thank you.
I think one of the key strategies to beat Steve Hershey is really look at what has Steve Hershey done. You know, I believe that Steve Hershey hasn't really shown us at times why he is our senator. Many people don't know who our senator is. But the question was to beat Steve Hershey. I think one of the ways that we do that is just exposure. We have, as my colleague said, it's a 2-to-1 district. But as you know, there are a lot of people who don't vote at all. So it's really going out there and saying, we have to get out to vote regardless of who the candidate is. We have to get out there and knock some doors. We're going to have to make some phone calls. We're going to actually have to do some things to get, I think it's really saying, why now? As my colleague also said, and I agree with this, right? A lot of the things that are happening at the federal level are trickling down to the state level, and people are looking at that and they want to distance themselves from that. I'm not saying the incumbent is a part of that. I'm saying people want to distance themselves from that. And so it's really going out there and saying, here we have a team, here's what we're going to do. We're going to knock those doors, get out the vote, because people are here and not voting. And so that is looking at our black and brown, that is looking at our Latino community, that is looking at our senior community, that is looking at every community that we can to reach those voters.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, you're going to start off by answering our next audience question. Where do you see District 36 in the next 5 years?
That's a great question. I think in the next 5 years, I see District 36. I see District 36 in a different light than it is today. I find that this district is a promising district. I feel like it is a district that has a lot of opportunity. What I see is that in the next 5 years in District 36, I see us looking at sustainability at the bridge with the bridge traffic. I think looking at those types of options that we can do. I see a district where we really combat the amount of poverty that is in this district. For one of the richest countries in the world, the amount of poverty we have in this district is insane. So finding ways that we can really work together to shorten our food insecurity. And in this district, I find us looking at ways that we can really protect our open spaces, our farms and things, while also working to ensure that we have clean and green renewable energies to ensure that our Marylanders are not paying the price on their backs. In a district where we look at what other districts are doing and saying, oh, you're doing that in your district. Why is that working for you? And how do we bring that here to District 36? Because District 36 is vast. It's just not Kent County. It's just not Queen Anne's. It's also Cecil County and Caroline County. So we have a lot of opportunity here. So that's my vision for District 36.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Where do you see District 36 in the next 5 years?
District 36 is at a point where we have to make a decision now. We have to start thinking about our future right here in the present before we can look down the road in 5 years. Now, with that, we have to make decisions on how fast infrastructure and growth happens here. But while we're doing that, we must balance the economic tax base naturally in our districts. Because across the district, Kent County is more than 5 years away from growth. Queen Anne's County is a little bit more prepared for growth. So what I see for us in the next 5 years is the corridor of the Eastern Shore turned into an economic boomer for our state of Maryland. Queen Anne's County and our District 36 is just 2 hours from 6 major markets: DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Jersey, and there's one left, but you can figure it out. With that, we need to actually increase agriculture and small industries here in our community and turn that into income and base taxes that's coming back into our community. We also have to decide how we're going to deal with the Bay Bridge and the Bay Bridge traffic, because that traffic is hindering growth along the 301 corridor that makes it hard for affordable housing and things of that nature. So in the next 5 years, we need to work on affordable housing, we need to work on economics, and we need to make sure that we're giving families in this district 5 years here to see their future here. A lot of families across the district don't see if they can work here and afford to live here, so we have to be able to give them a future within the next 5 years.
Thank you. We have one more question from the audience, and Mr. Clean, you're going to start with this one, and then we'll move over to you, Mr. Johnson. Oh, some more. We have another one coming after that. Okay, good. What do you think of the recent issue when the wrong ballots were sent to citizens? And do you think the State Board of Elections has handled it properly?
I think from my understanding, the mistake was with a third party. And I also think what's going on with the ballot issue, it isn't a sense of the ballot process and it's going to people or coming back to the state to be validated. I think we're at a position in society where it's a trust issue with government. I think a lot of people are making government the center or focal point of mistrust and dishonesty. When you have polarizing sides on the left and the right, it starts to turn into we can't trust anybody. So mistakes do happen. I don't want to say that was intentional. I want to say mistakes do happen, and we have to give grace to the government and to our democratic process to allow us to fix some of these mistakes. If the mistake was not identified or not being fixed in a timely manner, in my opinion, then we can actually criticize. But I think society has to kind of calm down sometimes and allow us to have the political process to go all the way through it and do our due process with elections, primaries, and actually mail-in voting, ballots, and early voting. I think we're in a good place in the state of Maryland. I think the state of Maryland, like most states in this country, do a very good job on security of the voting process.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Could you just repeat the question, please?
Sure, absolutely. What do you think of the recent issue when the wrong ballots were sent to citizens? And do you think the State Board of Elections has handled it properly?
I agree. Mistakes happen, and I believe it was a very party issue. As my colleague said, one of the most things that we're seeing across the land is around our election integrity. And I think Maryland did their due diligence. They saw there was an error. They said, here, we're going to rectify that. And they sent new ballots out. I think here in Maryland, I think we are grateful for our State Board of Elections because they're a very nonpartisan State Board of Elections. They are very by the book. When we file financial reports, when we are doing all the things here in Maryland, we have so much to follow. So they're very nonpartisan, as they should be. And so I think they did the right thing with sending the ballots out and saying, we made a mistake here, let's fix it so that Marylanders can use their right to vote fully and fairly.
Thank you. Thank you. We have one last question from the audience for now, although we may still get another one. And Mr. Johnson, you're going to get to answer this one first. How can District 36 work with the governor to limit the federal government's I had this figured out. Intrusive practices, such as working to take our voting records. I'm going to read that again since I stumbled. How can District 36 work with the governor to limit the federal government's intrusive practices, such as working to take our voting records?
Can you repeat it one more time?
Sure, no, absolutely. And just to reframe it, I think this has to do with the federal government asking to take states across the country's voting records, getting the voter, basically being able to see how all of us voted. But I'll rephrase the question, or I'll restate the question. How can District 36 work with the governor to limit the federal government's intrusive practices, such as how the federal government, I'm going to say, has been working to take our voting records?
I think one of the things we are positioned here, when we are in the, I think the good thing about it, if we elect the Democrats to the seat, we're in a little bit better, I'm not saying the best position, but a little bit better position to really have those open dialogue questions and comments with the governor and really say, I think one thing is really hearing the voice of the citizens, right? We're so told, we talk about these federal agencies coming in and doing what they would want or coming in to be intrusive into the state of Maryland and its practices. I think it's really working with the governor and creating legislation to help protect that. You know, help protect our citizens, our most vulnerable citizens from too much federal overreach. You know, there is a place for the federal government and state government, but there's not a place for too much federal overreach where it seems like it is oppressing its people. So I think it's really just going to the governor and saying, here's an issue here. These are what our citizens are feeling. And how can we work with you, Mr. Governor, to ensure that our citizens in District 36 are heard? And how are they heard? And how are they able to be assured that their voting record is being protected?
Thank you.
Gina Cook, don't get upset. I'm gonna ask for a repeat of that.
No, absolutely, no problem. So I think this question is centered around the federal government's intrusive practices.
Yeah.
But they hope that the person who asked this question is honing in on asking how would you work with the governor to limit those intrusive practices from the federal government, in particular them wanting to take our voting record, the federal government wanting to take our voting records?
Well, first, we have to look at the climate of our country. I think the federal government is starting to overstep the boundaries of laws, overstep amendments, constitutional rights. It's almost as if the federal government has turned into a bully of the state of Maryland. One thing we can do to work with the governor is see how we can support at the grassroots level and educate people on what their actual voting rights are. As we kind of discussed a little bit, it's a lot of disenfranchised and uneducated voters as it pertains to politics. So understanding your rights first, and then once you understand your rights, you'll be able to fight and protect your own right. I don't think that burden falls just on the state of Maryland and the governor. I think it falls on citizens as well. And at the same time, we have to look at situations that are coordinated between the state and federal level, because I still think this has to do with trust. So with that, it's kind of necessary for us to work together for the safety and the integrity of voting rights. And also make sure that we're coordinating clear policies and procedures so it does not undermine local authority or local law. And also with that, Maryland should prioritize the clear rules and transparency, yes, but also we need to have accountability at agency levels, not just at the state level, but the state, we should be checking and guideline providing to the federal level as well. A lot of this just have to do with trust and public connection to government, and I think we all have to do a better job and an overwhelming job to kind of convince people that trust is at their best interest through us.
Thank you. And Mr. Queen, you're going to have the opportunity to answer this next question first as well. We have two more questions, and so they might keep going, they might not. But what is the greatest obstacle to getting Black and brown voters to the polls? How can the women's voters help?
This is a touchy subject across the district. Black and brown voters feel disengaged because we feel like our vote has been exploited in both parties, the Democratic and Republican Party. What the League of Women Voters or any political entity or nonprofit in our community can do is stop being comfortable with the status quo. You have to go into these communities. A lot of times, Black and brown voters or residents don't see any politicians until it's election time. You have to keep a genuine relationship. And when you're building that relationship, you will build authentic trust, which seems to be some of the theme today. That's one part of reaching out to the Black and brown. Also, you look at the central committees and the Democratic clubs. They're very almost elite approach. And when you have people in poverty, in deep poverty in our district, it's a very daunting task to go to the yacht club or on a private boat for a Democratic Party or a Republican Party. You're not doing anything at the public parks. You're not doing anything where people are going like churches and nonprofits. So we have to make a conscious effort to not just address black and brown voters, we have to engage all voters and all citizens, whether you're independent, you should be able to vote in a primary. If you're unaffiliated, you should be able to have your voice. We have let the voice in the pocket of you're in this category because you're black, you're in this category because you're young, and you're in this category because you're a senior citizen, affect us doing our job as effective political and elected officials.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I think it's to what my colleague was saying, it's just not a black and brown issue. Many times, many voters in this district don't even know when the election is, where their early voting position, how to fill out a ballot. You know, it's showing up to these churches. You know, it's showing up to, like my colleague said, the parks. It's showing up just not on election day, but after election day and saying, hey, here I am. What do you need from me? You know, one of the things that we used to like when I was a kid, the League of Women Voters would do a sample ballot and send it out to all the students in the school. And we would have a chance to really vote for our candidates that we liked. And then we would go home and talk about, hey, I voted, and hey, I did this. And it made it more in a way that it showed that voting is just not an adult, it's children-centered, and that we can open up these conversations and have that. I think we've kind of gone away from that way of looking to see how do we get the vote out. The black and brown community sometimes doesn't come out, I'll go there now, because they feel like their vote has been ignored. That you only see me on election day and you don't see me anymore until 4 years later, until 2 years later. And I don't think that's right. And it's just not felt here, it's felt across the nation. So it's really working with the league in those partnerships and saying, this is what it means to vote, this is how you monitor your vote, and this is what we're going to do to make sure everybody gets out to vote, and it's just not a one-sided or one-size-fits-all.
Thank you both. Okay, we have another question, and Mr. Johnson, you're going to have the opportunity to answer this one first. How will you handle constituents' concerns? Do you have an office or an aide to help with constituent issues?
I'm assuming constituent is if elected.
Yes.
So I would say in the state of Maryland, every legislator does get aid, it does get staff, but it's just not that. You know, it's really again showing up, saying here I am in the community. It's more than showing up for a Chamber of Commerce breakfast or a pre-legislative meeting. It's more than showing up for a parade and a festival. It's really focusing in and saying this is my community. Going to that basketball game, going to that baseball game, going to that festival or fair, and really engaging with the public. I think for far too long, people see these roles as delegates and senators and as congressmen, not a people seat, right? But this is our district, this is our home as well. So really treating this seat as this is the people's seat. You have this voice, so come knock on the door, come call. You know, when I was on the school board, I used to put my phone number out there all the time. If you have something you want to ask me, call me. I'm here for you. So, and I will continue to carry that same sort of theme if elected to seat. So.
The reason a question like that can even be asked is because the current leadership must not be available, must not be accessible, and must not be visible. That's a problem. Also, we as the community have to hold as constituents, hold our elected officials accountable before they even get our vote. You have to look at the body of work that they have been doing or have done in their community. I've been in my community for 17 years doing grassroots work with youth, with people in poverty, with the Hispanic and Latino community, with resource builders, health providers, and I was able to coordinate and align the services with them because one of the issues constituents are also worried about is there's no alignment and coordination at the state level. That's due to poor leadership. If you're my constituent, whether you voted for me or not, I'm going to serve you. I'm going to hear your complaints, I'm going to hear your issues, and I'm going to advocate for you loudly in Annapolis. Our constituents feel like we do not have a voice in Annapolis. That has to change. We have to think about what we want now in the primary to ultimately start thinking about what constituents need after the general election. Thank you.
Thank you both. And now we are going to move on to our closing statements by each candidate. You will have 1 minute, is that correct? And we will be beginning with you, Mr. Queen. Thank you.
What I take from this forum tonight is simple. People are asking for leadership that shows up, listen, and deliver results that they can actually see in their daily lives. My approach is simple: better coordination, clear priorities, and real accountability for results so what we invest in shows up in our actual community. That means stronger local opportunity, more stable conditions for families and businesses, and more effective public use of our resources. Across the district, people are working hard, managing rising costs, and trying to make sure their families can provide and stay in our district. That's what I will fight for in Annapolis. Not political parties, not division, our district. Making sure communities across our district actually see the results in their everyday life. I'm John Queen, and I'm asking for your support in this primary this upcoming month. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Queen. Mr. Johnson.
Well, again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for this opportunity. I know it took us a minute to get here, but I'm glad we were able to have this forum tonight and this evening. Again, my name is Nigel Johnson, born and raised here, and I'm running to really keep the people first every day. This is more than an election. This is about the future we want to build together. A future where we have accessible healthcare, accessible transportation, where our agricultural spaces can grow, where our businesses can thrive. A future where government works for the people when they don't think it's working. I'm running because I believe in this district. I believe in District 36. I believe District 36 deserves a voice that will fight for them every day. And I believe in this district that it can be the promising district that it once was and still can be in the future. So I would be honored to hear your support as your senator, support for your vote as your next state senator in District 36. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, audience, for coming.